Okay, it looks like pretty much everyone is in, so great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Hunter Boucher, Vice President of Operations at LandlordBC, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the webinar uh, will be sent out to all registrants within the next week. So if you miss anything or want to revisit any part of the discussion, you'll have that available. We also encourage you to participate. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions you have. I'll be monitoring those and as we go, and at the end of each session, we'll get to as many questions as possible. For our first segment today, we have a panel discussion, best practices for tenant relations and retention. Today with me, I have Rhiannon Thomas Uyayar from Concert Properties and Keaton Bessie from Greater Vancouver Tenant and Property Management Limited. Uh, as many of you are experiencing, we're operating in a shifting rental market. Strong tenant relations and thoughtful retention strategies are becoming increasingly important, not just for stability, but for long-term operational success. Today's panel brings together experienced property management professionals who will share practical insights on communication strategies, managing expectations, and approaches that help reduce turnover and improve tenant satisfaction. Then, at approximately 12:40, we'll transition to our second segment. We're pleased to be joined by Grant Haddock of Haddock & Company Lawyers, who will walk us through the legal considerations around structuring rental incentives and rent reductions, an area that continues to raise important compliance questions for housing providers. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Haddock & Company Lawyers for sponsoring today's webinar. Really appreciate their ongoing support of LandlordBC and the education we provide to our members and the broader rental housing community. With that, we're going to get started. Welcome, Rhiannon, and welcome, Keaton.
Thanks, Hunter.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for both for joining us today on this timely conversation. As I mentioned, obviously seeing a shift in rental markets, and I know that both of you have experienced that and weathering that change quite well. So I'll give you each just a moment to introduce yourselves to our attendees. Rhiannon, if you want to go ahead and start.
Sure. My name's Rhiannon Thomas Uyeder, as Hunter so gracefully introduced me. I am currently the Director of Property Management at Concert Properties here in Vancouver, and look over the Western region, which includes both BC and Alberta.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Keaton.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Keaton Bessie. I'm the managing broker and owner at Greater Vancouver Tenant and Property Management. So we take care of the Greater Vancouver area and just rental properties.
Fantastic. So let's get right into the questions. As I mentioned at the beginning here, if you have questions throughout this, go ahead and use the Q&A. We'll get to as many questions from attendees as possible. So starting here with a few questions we prepared in advance, kind of start this conversation. What communication practices have you found to be most effective when it comes to building positive relationships with tenants and preventing really small issues from escalating?
Rhiannon, go.
Oh, geez. Put me in the hot seat. I think it's a bit of twofold. I think the most important thing is if things are getting escalated, you want to have that face-to-face conversation. I think like if you can't, come to a resolution after sort of the second email, take a minute, pick up the phone, meet the people in person, have those conversations and really build that sort of trust and communication. I think that's number one. It's so easy that stuff gets lost in translation over, Teams chats and texting and email. Like having those face-to-face conversations, I think just de-escalates any sort of situation. And I think also I try and come from, a place of yes, and not like, yes, we're going to replace your floor after 1 year, but yes, let's have a conversation. Let's look into this together and start building those relationships and communication, because if you start building that trust, people bring down their walls and it's much easier to resolve an issue and sort of de-escalate any situation that might occur.
Yeah. Do you have anything
Yeah,
to add on that?
of course. Definitely agree with Rhiannon stuff. Like it's very easy to just fire emails back and forth that get ever more aggressive and probably loses the point, right? Because if you'd misunderstood each other at the beginning, you're going to continue to misunderstand each other later on as things don't get resolved. And I'm sure most people on the call, if they're also receiving more and more thorough and long responses from people as people try to draft and manage, like draft communications and manage their emotions through, AI platforms and things. So we're probably also noticing that not everything is coming from the person. And just like Rhiannon said, if you can't get to resolution after one or two emails, it's probably best to pick up the phone and just have a normal human conversation. As ridiculous as that sounds, that's very valuable, even more so in today's world. Um, One thing that I've got written down here as I'm going through the questions is that like our whole team looks at everything through the lens of like service, and let's assume that the person who's reaching out to us, no matter how maybe angry or frustrated they might be, is that they're just trying to get a resolution to the problem. They're not trying to make your day worse. They're not trying to rip you off. There's definitely, of course, tenants out there who do, try to do that or trying to be like fraudulent. But the number of people that are actually trying to do that are substantially less than how your maintenance manager, your site staff, or as a property manager or owner may react to some inquiries that may seem unreasonable or significantly out of what you want to do from the bat. So really trying to dig into what the actual problem is and just get to a point where think about it to try to get a yes or like an understanding is the goal, and then that way you can solve it. There's going to be plenty of people in the room that have a position right now in a conflict where they've stated their position and they're not moving from that. And if the tenant is over here, there is a gap. That's what the RTB is for. That's what settlement is for, of course. And you can't make somebody who's going to be unreasonable anyways reasonable. That's you got to pick your battles as well. But the vast majority of times it's a misunderstanding. It's not just a fight for fights, purposes, right?
Great. Thank you. Thank you both. So starting with you, Keaton, are there any best practices that you employ to set expectations with tenants at the beginning of a tenancy to help ensure a smooth relationship over the long term?
Yes, we've just recently made a big shift on our like move-in inspection and onboarding of a new tenant. Historically we didn't really take any photos of anything unless there was a problem, and you note that on the move-in inspection. And that was, my understanding for a long time. That's a reasonable practice throughout the industry. And then when you do the move out, you capture the things that were not initially noted, right? But thinking through the lens of service and taking care of people and establishing a good, like, trustworthy start, we take like our move-in inspection reports are now maybe 100 pages with hyperlinked photos, timestamped, geotagged, and everything. And it is a full, like I could send our move-in inspection to anybody in this room and they would be like, oh yeah, I know the condition of this property at turnover immediately, the whole thing. And we've seen a substantial change in how tenants even move into the property and kind of take that first appointment with us moving in and taking control of the property. They just feel a lot more relaxed. They have way fewer questions. They're like, everything is recorded. And it's not a video, it's photos of all the specific areas in the property. And it's much easier to, like, we've had a couple people move out after the 12-month period since we've changed this. And that process is then substantially smoother. The other benefit is that when a tenant is putting in a maintenance request or something, we have the move-in inspection report data to go look. Like, you can capture the model numbers of certain faucets and toilets and all these other things. So it's added all these additional benefits where you can do a lot of the work, from the office versus having to follow up and collect more information. So it's actually speeding up our, maintenance request resolution timelines, just because of all that information we capture at the move-in inspection or pre-inspection, if you will, right? So that's been a big help.
Great. Rhiannon, anything?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of a best practice. I know we are, big on always promoting sort of people first and service excellence, and I think that's part of our company's DNA. And when a tenant comes in, you want to build that trust right away. So, okay, how is what is your welcoming? How are they feeling part of the community? What are we doing to, show them that, we are going to cherish them as one of the residents in the building. And I think creating that communication and that trust at the beginning, back to what Keaton said, documenting thoroughly when you do the walkthrough, letting people know where they can go to if there's an emergency, who they can contact, who's available to them, so that they don't feel like they're in the dark. I think, again, building that trust, Keaton said the same thing. It is such a huge part in the foundation when a tenant moves on to allow them to be open. And so when there is an issue, they can come to you and so that you can record it. I think there's so many times when people are just like, oh yeah, you're another piece of paper, sign the lease, you're in, there's not a big deal. And I think breaking that sort of cycle and creating that communication and creating that openness to be able to go and report things. So, people are scared. Oh no, I dropped a jam jar in my stove and accidentally cracked the glass. Like, it's a mistake. These things happens. People should be able to feel that they aren't going to be reprimanded for coming forward with these things. Like, they should be open to say, hey, there's an accident. How can we work through this? And I think that communication from the beginning is very important.
Great. A follow-up question for you, Keaton, on the move-in inspection. Something that actually came in from one of the attendees is, are you using any type of app for your or software solution for the move-in that helps you do this documentation?
Yes, I think I answered in the chat there too. But yeah, we use a lot of different technology platforms that are not prop tech. So this one we use something called Company Cam. It's not for property managers specifically. It's for like companies that need to take record of like sites, so photos and videos and those kind of things. Um, and we just built out some templates to build out our move in and move out process, and then it's very automatable, very open API, all that kind of stuff to grab just photo evidence, and all the photos we have are photos of empty properties that are publicly advertised. So it's like the privacy is we're not really too worried about the privacy part on that side. But yeah, it is Company Cam, and that attaches to like our DocuSign move in inspection report and stuff that we use. So
Great. Um, what would you say, and we'll start with you, Rhiannon, this time, what would you say are the most common complaints from tenants, and how do you typically respond?
I always use this one. It's the three P's, people, pets, and parking. And this comes back from my early days in property management. You're always dealing with people, you're always dealing with pets, and you're always dealing with people fighting over parking. So, I mean, we're in a people business. That's probably always going to be the first one. If there's a noise complaint, my dog's peed in the hall, whichever it may be. And I think, again, I'm going to go back. Communication is key. That's my message today. Communication is key. Like, we have to understand, people, this is people's houses. It's their livelihood. It's their safe space. It's where they go to decompress from all the stresses in the world, which we know of right now are just astronomical. So, how are we taking the time to listen to the people's complaints and kind of be a psychologist, I guess, in a way, and really understand what it is that they're asking for. And Keaton, and you hit on this on the first question is like, there is a problem. How are we going to solve it together? And I think that's, again, when complaints come in, just taking the time to really listen. Okay, what is it that they're actually complaining about? And yes, let's look into this together. And yes, how can we solve this together? So again, just that communication is absolutely key when complaints come in. Of course, you're going to have those underliers that are people who just complain all the time. And it's again one of those industries where we just have to take a deep breath and realizing they're not coming necessarily to attack you. They're really coming with a problem and trying to problem solve what that is important.
Yeah, Keaton?
uh, yes, absolutely. It's funny, Rhiannon, because you guys do multifamily and we're literally only single family currently anyways.
Yeah.
So it's really funny that you say the three Ps, parking, pets, and people. It's like, I assume other people like noise complaints and stuff. So in our world, none of that ever really applies, honestly. We hear
Fair.
nothing about pets, nothing about parking, nothing about people. But
Yeah.
having a, multifamily background, I'm like, yep, that's correct. On the single family stuff, our main things are going to be repair timelines and holdbacks. And we're in between, like I'm sure Rhiannon and Concert gives you, if you approve a budget and you go spend the money, and that's your responsibility, right? For us, with individual owners, there is a small, budget, but generally speaking, if there's anything outside of, 500 or $1,000, it needs approval. And we're all on it on our holdback side on move outs. We're very particular about it because at a move out, a client may also terminate our contract because they're selling the property or moving back in. And then they want to come back to you after you've already released the deposit, say, hey, like what's going on here and there. So we're very diligent on our holdbacks, and the repair timelines is an extra step, which we're using, technology and pre-approvals and everything that we can do to resolve those, complaints from tenants. But those will be probably the two biggest things for us. And like with holdbacks, for example, and communication, again, like we're going into, our team will actually go to the residential tenancy regulation depreciation schedule and look at, okay, you've damaged the floor, but we know the floor is 6 years old, and here's the depreciation schedule, so you're actually only on the hook for this. And we have a note in there about that. And with the amount of information that we're giving people through our process, they have, like, most of them have nothing to say at the end of the day. They're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But it's taken so much time to get there to where they're like, a reasonable person, which is the vast majority of people that you'll deal with in the general population, are just like, oh, thanks, that all makes sense. But it takes so much effort to build those systems and come from that place of doing that, right?
That's a great point, Keaton. Transparency is the key thing here. Like being open. Okay, this is what it is. Transparency and having that communication from the beginning. Absolutely. I think that's a great approach. I wanted to touch too, sorry, with regards to some other complaints with the market shift right now. I feel that some of the complaints are related to lack of service and amenities, especially in our larger, buildings. Like it's becoming a complaint, not in fact like, oh, like it's a bad thing, but it's just like, hey, you don't have AC, you don't have laundry and suites. Like, what are you doing to like make it so that I don't leave? So that is another common complaint that we have been sort of dealing with over this market shift over the last number of months.
Well, I think that kind of segues into our next question. What strategies have you found helpful in encouraging tenants to stay longer in these, very much changing times, a more competitive rental market?
I mean,
Well,
Rhiannon's given everybody in sweet laundry. She just gives it to them.
yeah, right. I wish that was the easiest way to do it. Yeah, I mean, we've been offering incentives just like everybody else across the market, and whether it's free rent, free parking, free storage, what are we looking at doing? We've been offering incentives for free laundry on the laundry rooms that we do have. How are we getting people to come back and sign a longer lease? And it's to be fair, been a struggle, and we're lucky, as Concert, that we are able to offer different things. And I think, we haven't increased rents on, for tenants that are at market or above market rents to keep them longer, and asking, okay, what is your best case scenario, and seeing where we can sort of, I don't want to say meet them in the middle, but make sure that they stay, because we want to have tenants stay year after year after year. That's what helps us build our community. So, looking in and digging deep and offering tenants, a little bit more than say you would this time last year when rents weren't going down as much. It's definitely been something that we've dealt with newly here in Vancouver, and those incentives really do help, but it's just having those conversations with people about, what would they like to see? What would keep them here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing. So under strategies, like I made the note of, we do an 8-month check-in. So people know in BC, you can increase the rent every 12 months. And we've had like an automatic message go out to the tenant, and again on our client side, because we have individual clients, not just concert, who is not a client actually. That's I want to clear that up. It's the so the 8 month check-in, we'll reach out to the owners and let them know, hey, it's time for, like, you can do a rent increase at this time. This is what this looks like. This is what the market is doing. This is what we recommend. And then on the tenant side, they get an email at the same time saying, like, your lease is coming up to month. This is what this means. And we've asked them a very straightforward couple questions. No matter what the market is doing, it's like, how long do you want to continue to live here, and how much do you want to pay?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
some people respond to that. Some people don't. I think it's about 50% right now. But just getting their first kind of position or response to discuss really what's going on. And I mean, you get things like, oh, actually, like, my wife's pregnant and we're moving anyways. Like, hey, this has nothing to do with like market rents or anything. They're going to move anyways. They're in a 1 bed. They want a 2. Okay. And so you get that information, and then you get people saying, hey, you know what, I've been looking around and I'm looking at these things. They start sending you listings and everything. And they obviously want to negotiate. And what we've learned from doing this, we don't have we have 250 units under management. What we've learned is that people will start to negotiate, but they reveal their position is just about money. And they actually have no intention of moving, which has created this very interesting way to kind of make sure that we're keeping tenants without really giving the farm away with what some people are doing. So we know, like, anybody in the room, I'm sure, like, would you move for $300 a month to save $300 a month? And a lot of people are like, maybe, right? Like, we're at a kind of, that's kind of the balance. And we have some tenants that are renting, at peak 2022 or 2023 highs. They may have overbid on the property, all that kind of stuff. And then they're looking around. It's like, wow, I could probably save $400 or $500 a month by moving. And we're like, we don't tell them, yeah, you can, but we know, yeah, you can. And so that's where we'll advise the owner, and we'll come back to them with a reasonable offers to keep them in there, because it's just financial and we know they're going to move. Other people are talking about $100. You're like, well, you're probably
$50
not going
in some
to.
cases.
Yeah.
$50 in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're screening effectively, and you're screening, for financially conservative people, like, we're not trying to gouge these people out of their last dollar. We're talking to people who are paying, for a $2,000 a month apartment, and they make $7,000 or $8,000 a year after taxes. Like, they can afford it. It's fine. You're just having a financial negotiation. And there are situations where it's as simple as, hey, you know what, like, the owner is willing to sign a 2-year renewal at this, we'll give you the $50 off or whatever if you stick in there. And that allows the tenant to know they're not going to sell the property and that kind of stuff. They're not, they're not dealing with an owner who's not able to continue to pay their expenses and those kind of things. And then everybody kind of comes to a mutual agreement there, which has been nice. But the biggest thing is reaching out before that lease is over.
Yeah.
And starting the conversation, because you get valuable information, and then you can plan through that and have conversations, because you already know you're going to lose some people anyways. People are excited to tell you, hey, like, we're pregnant, or hey, I got a promotion, and like, we're going to leave at the end anyways because of these great things. And even though the economy is not, have the best news lately, people are still, there's tons of that going on still, right? So people will share that information, and it's really great. So
yeah,
I'd say get communication.
And it goes back to that, again, laying that foundation. I'm approachable. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk it out. Like, there's always going to be an option that we can look into. And again, transparency, sending the communication out early as well. That's a great point, Keaton. And just making sure that you're leaving the door open a little bit to just allow for it. Don't put the automatic no out there. Let's talk about it. Yes, let's talk about it. What can we do? What can we do together?
Yeah.
A kind of maybe follow-up question to this is, if you have a tenant who has given notice, maybe they haven't communicated why they've given notice, you haven't had this conversation, have you taken the approach of connecting with that potential outgoing tenant to see why, and potentially save that tenancy if it makes sense?
You guys track that stuff, Rhiannon?
Yeah, we have. Like, we definitely have been, like, asking the question, why are you leaving? I mean, some of the buildings that we have, we know why. We know why we don't have air conditioning, and the brand new building right beside us does have air conditioning, or, they have in-suite laundry and we don't have in-suite laundry. And so I think gathering that for us also helps us with our long-term capital planning. Okay, what are we looking into? If we are turning over tenants because we do need to upgrade an amenity in our space, what does that look like? So regardless if we're able to keep the tenant or not, we are definitely asking for that feedback and looking into, okay, what is it so that we can maybe address these issues on a longer term basis and have those tenants stay longer.
Yeah, and if you're sitting in the room worrying about like, oh, we haven't been collecting this information, I'm assuming everyone in the room has been collecting the forwarding address when a tenant moves out. So if you've moved out, 30 tenants in the last 12 months or something, go back, look at the files, spend an hour and Google where all these people have moved and see what the differences are. If they've moved, from the west side of Vancouver out to central Surrey, they probably lost some income.
Mhm.
Right? Like something has happened that's not gonna you're not gonna control that by adding air conditioning, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or
And then
they
there's
bought a
gonna
place or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
yeah. And then sometimes it is amenities, right? Like I like a nice place. My building that I live in is pretty old. Thankfully, I own here, and we're going to move. But we're going to move and get a nicer place now because we can afford that, and that's what a lot of people are going to do as well. And again, if you're screening appropriately, you have financially conservative tenants who are saving money to improve their life, like they're working on their incomes, they're doing those things.
We
Um,
do.
yeah,
So, oh,
go ahead.
sorry. So I was going to
Yeah.
say we also do, our tenant surveys and use that data as well, proactively to say, okay, hey, what is it that we can do to help enhance the building as well? So it's not just when they leave, it is definitely something that we are doing proactively throughout the year. But those details are key. They're key to helping keep tenants. Key to, capital planning and future changes within the building, as well as, again, building that community and keeping the people there that we want to keep there.
Mm. Yeah, it helps us with like new clients or clients at turnover where we advise them like, hey, you don't have in-suite laundry, or you don't have hard flooring, or you don't
Mhm.
have stainless steel appliances, right? And we're like, units that we're renting are renting faster and for more money. And honestly, the market is getting to a point now with older units that we're like, depending on the property, in my opinion, yes, it's worth putting $35,000
100%.
in and
Yeah,
updating that unit.
absolutely.
Where 2023, it was like, no, people will pay $1 million to live anywhere, right? That was not a
Exactly.
problem. Now it's becoming more of a let's add some value and do that. So we are looking into that a lot as well, where we're seeing tenants not move into a place because it doesn't have this, and they're getting picky and choosy, right?
Absolutely. Because they can. There's so much out there right now for them to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that.
Yeah.
In a situation where you do provide a rent decrease, say the end of a 1 year fixed term, we'll say, um, do you typically, if you are offering that incentive, are you generally then asking them to continue on month to month, or another fixed length of time, another year, to kind of secure that tenure?
For us, it depends on the client. It depends on the homeowner client, what they're looking at. Because sometimes people are like, oh, my mortgage renews 9 months from now. And we're like, okay. So we have these weird little things, but I'm sure Rhiannon's communities have a policy or something comes
Yeah.
from finance or something, right?
No, we definitely try and have people sign for at least another year, especially, on the major rent decreases. That being said, we had a new building, go for the highest high rents in 2022, and now you look at the market and they're like six and $700 above market. So I think we're looking at it based on the rents that they're currently paying, what their familiar situation is. Like, like Keaton said, are they having a baby? Are they looking to do something else? Is there a possibility of moving them to another suite within the building? Like, there's so many different factors that we're looking at when we do that. But absolutely, like I think we want to extend their stay. We want them to stay. If they're happy here, we want them to continue to be happy. So we are looking at that extension. But again, it's definitely done on a case by case basis and what the rents are and what that difference is between market and current state.
And have you found one-time incentives versus rent reductions to be an effective tool?
I'll die on this sword. I hate incentives. I don't think they work. Like I see, so like the incentives Rhiannon was talking about, like free parking, free internet, those kind of things are generally less than 1 month's rent, right? So the big incentives that I've been pounding the drum on social media and at other events and things are like 1 and 2 months rent makes no sense in my mind. Um, if you have somebody in the room that's close to, closing on something, and like if Rhiannon knows that, oh, I've got 7 or 8 empty parking stalls I can get rid of, then it's value to the tenant, and it's basically nothing off of Rhiannon's back, right? And in some circumstances we can offer the same thing, but it would just be to kind of get that, from the 1 yard line over the finish line there. As far as marketing to the open market, my understanding is there's only one rental platform that even allows you to filter for incentives included, and they've just done that like 3 or 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So they, unfortunately, to everybody in the room, this is not financial advice, but the best incentive is a properly priced property. And in fact, we're actually going in reverse, where we're removing things like parking and storage from our listings, when traditionally, if you're marketing an individual condo, it's all included. That's just to get the price down, and have the ad show up versus not. So we're like going backwards on the incentive thing, and it's working very well.
I see where you're coming from in terms of incentives just not being efficient. I think again, you have to look at it in two different aspects. Like incentives for some people are definitely, hey, I'm getting 2 free months rent on, a 13-month lease. Like that's 2 months off. Like I think that definitely does bring people in. For our buildings, it for sure has brought people in and it has made people stay as well. So they do, I think, work in our buildings. I do have to agree though, there's incentives that are sort of just knee-jerk reaction incentives to try and get people in there. And I find with our market, it's, it causes a bit of a headache, but it is kind of a necessary evil to get that even foot traffic in and have people coming in so that there is more word of mouth. So I think I have a love-hate relationship with them. I see them work on both sides, and we've had success with the incentives that we've put into place here.
Well, and what I'm curious about with you, Rhiannon, versus some of the other purpose builds that I've seen go up from, people who've never built them before.
Mhm.
Where if you're offering like 1 month's rent free, are you then charging market rent, or are you charging above market rent?
We're charging market rents. We're
Okay, so
charging
that's
market
that's one
rent.
of the big differences for me that a lot of people don't understand, is that people are offering you 2 months free rent on a $2,000 a month apartment, but they're writing $2,400 on the lease. And then
100%.
they
Yeah,
have all
there's a
this
lot of that.
turnover, right? Which has been
Yeah.
reported by CMHC and everything too. And like CMHC is the underwriter on the loans. So,
Yeah.
and they're saying it, right? So,
Yeah. Well, I think integrity plays a part of it too, right? Like the market is the market. We're gonna show you, okay, look, we wanna be fair, we want to be equitable. Like this is what the market rent is. We will offer that, and here's the incentive to get the people in. Like I said, integrity plays a part in it, and you're gonna have people that their bottom line isn't people, and our bottom line is. So we just want to make sure that we are telling that same story.
boom, mic drop, session's over.
So when it comes to, possibly lowering rent or putting rather actually putting some work into to suites and upgrading them, you both have mentioned, there's an opportunity there to look at capital projects when it comes to these suites. Um, do you find that, a suite that has been redone, renovated, that people are willing to generally pay more for that unit?
When the market is
Yeah.
when the market isn't falling, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, wouldn't you like I sorry, Keaton, I didn't mean to go in, but when the market is on point, there is no issue. Yes, they're going in. Now, of course, you're going to get a nicer set of appliances, but now that's, you know, people have the choice, and that's the struggle. Is, you have a choice to go into a brand new purpose built opening doors, no one's ever lived there, or, a unit that's been renovated 10 times to make it look like, a brand new purpose-built building. I think it's difficult when people have the choice. When people don't have the choice, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, like our big thing on the marketing side is like tenants have so many options, And so if they're looking at like the amount of people and like potential clients and colleagues and stuff that talk about, oh, well, we put, this stuff in the write up. There's enough photos and listings out there that nobody's looking at the write up. If that first couple photos, if that doesn't look
Great
someplace
point.
they want to move into, forget about it. They're going to the next one because there's tons of them, right?
Yeah.
They're going to load up their weekend with 4 or 5 open house or showings. They're going to go to 2 or 3 of them, and then they're going to go to brunch. Like there's no urgency anymore. Um, we used to sign deals like every day of the week because people were just like, just give it to me now. And these are all, high earning, great credit people. And now it's like we'll send a lease on a Wednesday, and they're like, thanks, we'll look at it over the weekend. We're like, what? They follow up with
Yeah.
us on Monday. We're like, but like we'll give it away to somebody else. We're like, that's okay. Like we don't have anybody else waiting maybe in
Yeah.
that situation, and they, call your bluff. There's no urgency. And so if those first photos don't show like a place like with carpet through the main area, for example, versus hard flooring. It's just that's one easy difference that people now see. Great, and then they're going to continue on if it's looks ready to rent. But there's so many things still in the market where there's still furniture in there, right? And there's like they clearly don't care in those places. They will not rent. It's not about if it's just going to rent for low or something. It's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to show up anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Going back, Keaton, to a point you made actually at the beginning of our conversation here, just really quickly want to touch on the process that you've gone through at the beginning of tenancy document the state of the unit. Um, I mean, you're using Company Cam to document the state of the unit through pictures. Assuming you're also still using, of course, a condition inspection report.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gone to dispute resolution with any tenants using this process, and has it aided you?
We haven't yet, but we already have a process to where just the way it builds the documentation, it's easier to upload because even like Company Cam will automatically reduce photos and things, so they're easier to upload. And the PDF that you actually upload into the RTB portal, the arbitrator can download, and they're using their computer and the internet, and they can actually click the photo and open it into a
Hmm.
larger photo if they need to. So the evidence, it's just an evidence collection tool. So it's easier to
Hmm.
go through. And then we have, of course, like our in-house condition inspection report, which, is RTB, complies with the regulations and all those kind of things. So, yeah, we haven't gone to the RTB, and we haven't had this in process for an incredibly long time. But the other thing
Yeah.
is that our chargebacks are more agreeable. So we're not going to the RTB as often either. So it's kind of like a good.
Yeah, and I think that highlights kind of uh, an important point that we at LandlordBC want to always make sure that people are aware. It's great to use things like these software solutions for any part of your tenancy, but certainly throughout um, the beginning and end of tenancy to document the state of the unit. But it is also very important and really critical that you continue to use the condition inspection form, either the one provided by LandlordBC or the one provided through the RTB website.
I mean, I'm sure if anybody in the room is planning on changing their process there, Grant is happy to talk to you about it.
Exactly, exactly. On that, we have time for just another couple more questions. Um, uh, Kind of just to kind of bring us to the end of this, when you look at your experiences and how things have changed over the years, what are some mistakes that you see, perhaps maybe you've made, or that you see landlords and rent housing providers in general commonly making with tenants, and how can they be avoided? And
I,
Uh,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
can I can take this one. I
Go for it.
think I know in past experience, I think sort of over delivering on details and forgetting that, you're taking out the human piece of people living. I think I touched on this too. People living in their spaces. Like we as managers and property managers and industry people get sort of caught up in that day to day and forget that we're dealing with tenants' homes. It's like I said, it's their safe spaces. And sometimes I think if, we're flipping through and just clicking and just trying to get to the next person, like we forget and we will over deliver and then be like, oh, oversay something and be like, oh, we actually can't do that. I think we've kind of gotten lost in taking the time to slow down a little bit and listen and try and really figure out what the issues are or what the problems are. It's so easy just to scrape people away and some people have these massive portfolios and they're dealing with thousands and thousands of people a day and it's easy to get caught up and lost. So I think I know I've been through that and just remembering to take a step back and really listen to what people are trying to say and building that trust. It's so important. It's so important to be able to do that so that people can come to you and know that they can come to you and there'll be a solution to whatever's coming up.
Hmm. Yeah, the like I've got written down here, the biggest mistake that landlords make is they're assuming that the tenant is trying to rip them off or screw them over or something. Just you can't assume that. Like we always try to assume the positive. Like just imagine like your best friend is coming to you with the same situation. How would you view the communication versus, a tenant that you might have? And how would you deal with it differently? I'm not going to go over there and help them move in the middle of the day. That's, I might help my best friend out with that at this age, just tell him to get a moving company. But
Yeah.
it's like, just don't, you got to assume the positive and try to solve the problem from there.
Mhm.
The nice thing at the end of the day is that you can still say no. You can still be nice, still assume positive, and still hold your position of like, we
Exactly.
understand, but like we're not willing to do that. So like what would you like to do? How would you
Let's
like
come
to
up with
resolve
another
this?
solution. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, uh, we'll kind of have one more question here for directed specifically to Keaton. Since you work primarily in what we consider the secondary market, so people who own, a few units, maybe a condo, that sort of thing, a single-family dwelling, those types of units. Um, with the change in the market, have you seen owners simply just get out of the business?
So at the beginning, she kind of end of last year, beginning of this year, just in my mind, my general feeling, like I'm an owner of a company that I started, and it's like you're always worried about going back down to zero, even though that seems to be well in the back in the rearview mirror at this point. Um, so in my mind, it was like we get the termination notices that people are going to sell their properties and stuff. And I was like, oh, it seems like more is happening. And then I finally took the time to sit down and look at it, and it's like, well, relative to the growth of our portfolio, there is no more
Hmm.
turnover. So it seems like for the last, I don't know how long, 10 years since BC has implemented more and more and more tenant friendly regulations, landlords have been getting out of the business the whole time.
Hmm.
And yet, a company like mine, been around for 8 years, we've never been busier and we've always been busier, right? And it's not just because I'm
Hmm.
out there taking business from other people in a shrinking market. I would be an incredible business person and also an idiot for trying to get in and take over a shrinking market.
Hmm.
So there are people getting out as much as there are people getting in,
Hmm.
and we have a lot of client, like if you're also a realtor in the room, for example, you might be like, oh, I haven't had an investor call me in years. It's like, well, today isn't necessarily, I mean, actually today might be a good time for investors, and we're kind of starting to see that. But at the same time, is like a lot of our clients did not plan even 3 or 4 years ago to become a landlord. It's just their life circumstances have changed and now they are one. And a lot of our clients end up thinking it's going to be a 1 or 2 year process, and it's been 6, right? And life is fine. So they're very very personal financial situations. A People complain that there's no cash flowing properties anymore, and I always tell them, of course, all properties cash flow, just don't have a mortgage. And like, well, who the hell doesn't have a mortgage? It's like there's lots of our clients that don't have mortgages. So it's always just a personal financial situation. I can buy a property with no mortgage, sell it to somebody who has a mortgage. The income statement looks very different, right? Same
Yeah.
property. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you both for your great information today. An absolute pleasure to have both of you on. Thank you to our attendees for the questions you've sent in.